So how did a suicide bomber strapped with explosives get close enough to kill 13 U.S. troops and scores of Afghan civilians during that evacuation of the Kabul airport? Well, today, the Pentagon released the findings from the military's investigation of the devastating terror attack in the final days of America's longest war. Another warning now, some of the video you're about to see may be disturbing. After reviewing autopsies, interviewing eyewitnesses, and examining this drone video of the aftermath, a team of U.S. Army investigators determined a lone ISIS bomber caused all of that carnage. That contradicts the Pentagon's initial report that there were also ISIS gunmen who fired into the crowd to maximize the casualties.
The investigation found that a single explosive device killed at least 170 Afghan civilians and 13 U.S. service members by explosively directing ball bearings through a packed crowd and into our men and women at Abbey Gate. We now know that the explosively fired ball bearings caused wounds that look like gunshots.
Take a look at this Pentagon diagram of the blast at the airport's Abbey Gate. See here, the explosion icon you see there, that's where the suicide bomber detonated. And all the blue dots represent U.S. service members killed in the blast. And then you see all of those yellow dots. All of those are wounded U.S. troops. One of the service members killed was more than 50 feet away from the bomber. Look to the right there. You can see that dot to the right of that white vehicle. Investigators said the bomber was able to get close to the gate during an especially chaotic time when the crowd size swelled significantly. To show how tense the situation was leading up to the attack, investigators played this video of a Marine being pulled into the crowd by the barrel of his gun. Investigators also said there was no evidence, none at all, that Taliban fighters were somehow complicit or even knew the attack was coming. During the chaotic evacuation, U.S. troops were working with the Taliban to secure the perimeter, remember? Taliban fighters were the first line of defense and security screening for Afghans trying to get out of there. Also today, for the very first time, we're seeing the only known video footage from the blast itself. Investigators you can see the bomber dressed in all black over the Marine's shoulder in this video. It's really quick, so we're going to play it for you twice, once at regular speed and then slowed down. You saw it there over his left shoulder. The investigation found that the military commanders on the ground took all appropriate measures to protect their troops during operations there at Abbey Gate. CNBC's senior Washington correspondent Eamon Javers has been digging into the investigation's findings. Eamon?
Shep, the first few moments after the blast were just unbelievable chaos. Marines who survived the explosion, the whizzing ball bearings, and the blast wave, they were disoriented, uncertain what had just happened, and trying to mount a response. Here you see that drone video minutes after the attack, Marines running down a narrow corridor to fight off assailants and support any survivors. Making the sensory overload even worse was tear gas enveloping the scene. Pentagon officials said the explosive force of the shrapnel tore apart CS canisters worn on the bodies of the Marines, spreading choking gases over the survivors. And it's in these first few moments that Pentagon officials today suggested the false narrative of a complex attack took hold. In all that confusion, British and American troops fired warning shots over the heads of surging crowds of Afghans. And the reports from that gunfire echoed throughout the tall corridors of cement barriers surrounding the airport. It was that noise, plus the fact that wounds from those 5mm ball bearings resembled gunshot damage, that gave rise to the false idea that there had been a firefight in the first place. Pentagon officials said leaders on the ground were personally on the scene and took all proper measures to protect the troops. And individual Marines showed heroic restraint, not firing their weapons into the crowd even when they were assaulted or attacked. Officials cited the inherently dangerous nature of the mission and said at a tactical level, this was not preventable. Of course, Shep, that leaves open the question of what went wrong at the strategic level that put these servicemen and women in this position to begin with.
Eamon Javers, live in D.C. Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.